for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, everyone. Qu'on ouvre les portes. Let the doors be opened. 2 seconds. I don't know what those are, so I'll let you have them. Batteries of some kind. Yeah. Two. Make sure. Ready? Table. Statement by members. Déclaration de député.
The Honourable Member for Marc Aurel Fortin. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Molly Vaikal.
Mourn their loved ones. May 18, 2009 marks the end of armed conflict in Sri Lanka, with no peace on the island till this day. Over 70,000 Tamils were killed, 300,000 detained, and countless disappeared. We join the Tamils across the world to honor the fallen and to remember.
Today is the 13th anniversary of the Molly Vaikal genocide. May 18th, 2009 was the end of the conflict, but peace has still not returned to Sri Lanka to this day. Over 70,000 were killed and 300,000 detained or disappeared. Today, we join with the Tamil people to honor them and to remember.
The Honourable Member for Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to recognize 4 outstanding individuals from my beautiful riding of Niagara Falls who have made significant contributions in our communities and in this country. They are David Mostaway, or better known as Duff Roman from his broadcasting days from Niagara and the Lake, who was appointed to the Order of Canada by the Governor-General for his significant contributions to the Canadian music industry. Peter Warwick, also of Niagara on the Lake, was recently awarded the Meritorious Service Cross from the Governor-General in recognition of his significant work to combat human trafficking in Canada and abroad. Steve Ludzik from Niagara Falls was awarded the Meritorious Service Decoration Award in the Civil Division from the Governor-General for his work in establishing the Steve Ludzik Parkinson's Rehab Center at Hotel du Shaver Health and Rehabilitation Center, and Aaron Tate of Niagara Falls, who was awarded the Ontario Medal of Firefighter Bravery by the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario for putting his own life at risk by rescuing a distressed teenager in the raging waters of the lower Niagara River. Congratulations to these 4 constituents for their incredible work, sacrifices, and commitment to bettering the lives in our communities and country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, on this Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day, I want to honor those who died and those who survived. I want to honor the mothers of the disappeared who continue to search for their lost children, the women and men who are at Molly Vaikal today to commemorate their loved ones under strict surveillance by the Sri Lankan military, the war widows who are struggling to feed and raise their children alone, all the while searching for answers, the Tamil nation for its resilience and persistence against all odds and its relentless pursuit of justice, accountability, and self-determination. Today is also a day to recommit to ensuring that we have accountability for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. In Sri Lanka, it starts with the discredited Rajapaksa brothers, whose veil of impunity is unraveling. International impunity will also end, Mr. Speaker, as we reaffirm the international rules-based order. The Rajapaksas and others will face the wrath of justice. Today, let us remember and reaffirm our thirst for justice, accountability, and peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, I will have the honour of attending in my riding the launch of a new book about Pierre de Bellefeuille, a former Bloc Québécois member. In this new biography, the author speaks about the incredible work done by him throughout his life and all of the various roles that he played. On November 15th, 1976, when Quebecers chose René Lévesque as their new premier, it was Pierre de Bellefeuille who was the first member of the Parti québécois to be confirmed representative of the riding of de Montagne. In addition, Pierre de Bellefeuille lived in the Chenier House in Old Saint-Eustache, where resided, along with some of our most celebrated patriots, the former Premier of Quebec, Paul Sauvé. Thank you, Denis Monnier, for letting us rediscover this brilliant patriot, Pierre de Bellefeuille. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
Oyez, oyez, Mr.
Oyez, oyez, Mr. Speaker. The noble ladies and gentlemen of the Seigneurie of Vaudreuil-Dorion will be getting together from June 9th to 12th to celebrate the 30th edition of the Seigneurial, to eat, drink, play, and sing, but especially to celebrate the rich history and heritage of our community of Vaudreuil-Soulanges. After 2 years where the celebrations had to be either scaled down or simply cancelled, we can finally come together, the young and the young at heart in our community, to celebrate our rich cultural heritage. I would like to thank the Mayor, Guy Pilon, of the City of Vaudreuil-Dorion, Danielle Bissonnette and the Regional Museum of Vaudreuil-Soulanges, and Christiane Lévesque and her team for their incredible work. And I'd like to invite all of the noble ladies and gentlemen of Vaudreuil-Soulanges to join us and to enjoy the family activities. You'll see local artists and artisans, and you'll see everything that our great seigneurie has to offer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, I was really pleased when my private member's bill to create a framework to get consistent access to palliative care for all Canadians was unanimously passed. The Health Minister then created the framework and committed $6 billion over 10 years in 2018 for palliative care. But, Mr. Speaker, here we are 4 years later and only $200 million of the money pledged has been spent, and most of it was spent on medical assistance in dying. Mr. Speaker, this is unacceptable. I call on the government to return to the plan. Funding to enhance virtual services for palliative care, funding to train nurses and paramedics to deliver palliative care in rural areas, building hospices to serve the aging population. These are just some of the great plans we need to get back on track with. The special committee that studied MAID said, without good quality palliative care, there really is no choice. My bill and the plan developed with all-party support would make that choice a reality. I encourage the Health Minister to return to the plan and fulfill the promised funding for palliative care.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, each year as parliamentarians, we have the opportunity to welcome Ukrainian interns to be part of our offices through the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Program. This year comes with added significance and an opportunity for us to learn firsthand what Ukrainians are facing right now. Maggie joined my office and has shared her fears and her hopes for her community back home. When asked what she would like all of us as members in this chamber to know, her words are simply put, but urgent. The Ukrainian military is under fire daily in the Azovstal plant in Mariupol, fighting in poor sanitation conditions and without water. They are fighting to survive and not surrender as Russian troops continue to violate the rules of war, killing civilians. Thankfully, the Ukrainian military are evacuating women and children from the plant, as many have been there for more than 2 months. Yet their rescue continues to be in constant jeopardy. There is a need for more international observers in the face of this humanitarian crisis. She asks that we make sure that all of us know the tragedy of Mariupol and Azovstal and the urgency to save lives. She echoes the calls of her fellow courageous Ukrainians to act, to save Mariupol, save Azovstal now. Mr. Speaker, we all have a responsibility in this House to stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Youth Guiding Youth Society, which held its annual fundraising dinner in support of the BC Children's Hospital. Last Friday's event raised $41,000, which brings the total amount raised since 2012 to amazing $291,000. I thank the organizers, young volunteers, and directors, including Manroop Gumman, Amartpal Ugra, Manveer Kunar, Arvind Kunar, Arshdeep Pataria, and Devjot Pataria for their efforts on behalf of British Columbia's world-class healthcare facility for children. This is the kind of community initiative that shows off the very best of what our youth have to offer to broader community. Please join me thanking these youth volunteers for doing an amazing job for our society.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow officially marks the start of Canada's National Junior A Championship, the 2022 Centennial Cup taking place in my hometown of Estevan, Saskatchewan, and the excitement is definitely in the air. This year's tournament will run for 11 days and feature 10 teams from 9 JHL leagues across the country. It also marks the 50th anniversary of the Centennial Cup event, so it is an honor to be able to host the tournament in Estevan and celebrate the milestone. The Flin Flon Bombers, Summerside Western Capitals, Ottawa Junior A Senators, Sioux Thunderbirds, Dauphin Kings, Pickering Panthers, Red Lake Miners, Collège Français de Longueuil, Brooks Bandits, and the SJHL champions, the Estevan Bruins, will play some of the best hockey in this country. And I encourage everyone to show their support by coming in person to watch a game or tuning in online. Now, of course, I myself will be rooting for the Estevan Bruins, but I wish the best of luck to all participants for a successful and memorable Centennial Cup. Go Bruins, go!
I wish I could comment on that one. I really could. The honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to express my condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of Al Jazeera reporter Shiri Abu Ekla, who was shot and killed during an Israeli military operation in the West Bank. And I am deeply disturbed by what happened during her funeral procession. Journalists are vital to our democracy. They risk their lives every day to bring us the truth about what is happening in our world. Canada must make clear the need for an independent international investigation, and that those responsible for the shooting of Shiri Abu Ekla must be held accountable for their actions to the full extent of local and international law. It is clear that only the International Criminal Court has the ability to conduct an investigation that is thorough, full, and independent. And I call on Canada to recognize its jurisdiction so there can be justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, the tourism sector is on its knees. Communities across this country and in Simcoe North are depending on the influx of tourists to get back on their feet. But businesses and communities shouldn't have to also deal with the federal government getting in the way of what should be a strong recovery.
That's right.
The latest revelation from the CBSA that almost 80% of small vessel crossings will remain closed will be devastating to communities like Simcoe North. If a Michigan boater wishes to visit Georgian Bay and our 30,000 islands, they will need to go 230 kilometers round trip out of their way to Sarnia. This is neither safe for boaters, nor good for the environment, nor good for business. Take another example. The Tall Ships Great Lakes series that is expected to bring tens of thousands of visitors to communities in the Great Lakes, including beautiful city of Midland. However, the CBSA policy may put these tall ship visits in jeopardy. The government must take swift action now so we may save the upcoming tourism season. Let's save the summer.
Let's go. Let's save it.
The honourable member for Foothills.
It's been more than 2 years since the start of the pandemic, but Canadians are still reporting high levels of anxiety, depression, and are struggling with their mental health. More and more countries around the world are ending their vaccine mandates and travel restrictions, getting life back to normal. But here in Canada, many Canadians are still faced with hardship and heartbreak because of outdated and invictive vaccine mandates. The Liberals continue to punish Canadians despite strong alternatives like rapid testing being readily available. Canadians like my constituent Denise, who had to turn down work with UNICEF. Mike, who hasn't been able to hug his grandkids. Sylvie, who missed her grandmother's funeral in Ontario. Or Randy, who wasn't able to celebrate his mom's 92nd birthday with her. Or the thousands of energy workers from across Canada who haven't been able to travel to BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan to work in the vital oil sands. It's time to stop this ideological and divisive language around the vaccine mandates and end the travel restrictions. It's time to get people back to work and address the crisis that is our mental health that many Canadians are facing.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, today, May 18th, is the 219th anniversary of the creation of the Haitian flag, which I have the privilege to highlight today in the House of Commons of Canada. The red and blue flag symbolizes the abolition of slavery in the colonies, freedom and equality for all. The bravery of our heroes and of the valiant people led to one of the greatest victories in the history of humanity, the Haitian Revolution of 1804. As we highlight the major contributions of Haitians around the world, I dearly hope that Haitians will draw from this rich history to finally ensure that democracy continues to flourish in this country. Happy Flag Day.
And before we go on to our next one, I want to remind members to keep the tone, keep the noise down a little bit so we can get the statements done out. The Honourable Member for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Mr. Speaker, recently a leaked draft opinion revealed that the U.S. Supreme Court is considering overturning Roe v. Wade, a landmark decision on abortion rights. This unprecedented disclosure raises deep concerns about the existing guarantees of abortion access, and it's more important than ever to ensure that reproductive rights and justice are protected in Canada. So today I rise to highlight that while abortion rights have always been a priority in Canadian society, access barriers still exist. Recently, Manitoulin Island-based writer Ruth Farquhar described the situation in our country as abortion being only truly accessible to women of privilege, due to numerous issues related to geography, age, gender, race, socio-economic factors, and immigration status.
Mr. Speaker, it is paramount that we as parliamentarians advance reproductive justice by addressing the needs of the most marginalized women, families, and communities, and by expanding access to reproductive health care across this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, do you know who's turning 40 this week? Bo Derek? Almost. No, it's Rocky Belzore, Mr. Speaker. And even if they've been in hibernation for several years, RBO's humor is still present every day in Quebec, thanks to enduring sketches like The Mini-Putt, Hockey for the Blind, and The News for the Hard of Hearing, which are all modern classics. With characters like Serge Chiachon, Mr. Caron, the Slow-Mo family, or Madame Brassard from Brassard. Oui, allô? RBO has entertained, enlightened, enchanted, and even scandalized Quebecers, as with their ad that taught us that, and I quote, Xerox is an unparliamentary language, great machine. André Ducharme, Chantal Franck, Bruno Landry, Guillaume Lepage, Yves Pelletier, and Richard Z. Sirois have made their mark in Quebec. They drew a new line in the sand for what's socially acceptable, and then they ran across that line as quickly as they could. When RBO was at its most outrageous, Quebec laughed its hardest. With RBO, humor is like an old-fashioned stew. It's the lumps that taste best. Through their records, the stage, TV and radio shows, and the bye-bye, me, my sister, and our kids, we love them very much.
The Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, today we will see the implementation of the new Liberal Long-Gun Registry. A quote from former Liberal Party leadership candidate.
Order. You never know what kind of kerfuffle may be going on in the House of Commons. Let's keep it down. We got a couple more to go. The Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies, and start again.
Mr. Speaker, Today we will see the implementation of the new Liberal long gun registry. A quote from a former Liberal Party leadership candidate. The long gun registry as it was a failure, and I'm not going to resuscitate that. Some other quotes from the same member. There are better ways of keeping us safe than that registry, which has been removed, and we will not be bringing back a long gun registry. It's not part of our plan and has never been. One more from the same Liberal MP. I was raised with an appreciation and an understanding of how important in rural areas and right across the country gun ownership is as a part of the culture of Canada. Who said that? It was this Prime Minister. My question, Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister truly believes the Liberal long gun registry was a failure, then why is he breaking his promise to law-abiding firearms community, and why is he re-establishing it today?
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, Shiri Abu Akleh spent her career as a journalist shedding light on the plight of Palestinian people. She was fearless, inspiring, and at her core, a compassionate woman who dedicated herself to bringing a voice to the voiceless. On May 12th, she was shot and killed while reporting on an Israeli military raid in the West Bank. Good journalists perform a vital role in democracies around the world. They're protected under international law. There must be an investigation into Shiri Abu Akleh's killing, and there must be justice. The fact is, these senseless deaths will not stop until the world comes together to build a just and lasting peace for all those who live in the region. The fact is that Shiri Abu Akleh is dead, and we are all the poorer for it. May she rest in peace. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Thank you.
Oral questions. Question oral. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
The Liberal government's argument for invoking the Emergencies Act on Canadians is very quickly falling apart. Last week we learned the RCMP did not ask the government to invoke the Act, and just yesterday we learned the Ottawa Police didn't either. The Liberals are simply not telling Canadians the truth. The Emergency Measures Act was an overreach by the Prime Minister and a government in trouble. Their power grab was just another example of classic Liberal cover-up, deny, and blame. Isn't that the truth, Mr. Speaker?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The illegal blockades in our cities and at our ports represented a threat to Canadian jobs, to trade, and to our democracy. Police told us they needed additional tools to clear the blockades, and as the OPP Chief Superintendent Carson Pardee said at yesterday's meeting, and I quote, "The Emergencies Act gave police effective supplementary tools needed to help protect critical infrastructure and ensure the continuous and safe delivery of essential goods and services, while at the same time maintaining, or in the case of Ottawa, restoring peace, order, and public security."
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
The Prime Minister's divisiveness is the reason the protests started, and his failure to lead is the reason it got worse. The Prime Minister called people names, he wedged, he divided, and then he spread misinformation. Then to deal with the mess that he created, he invoked the Emergencies Act, stomping on freedoms and freezing bank accounts. Now he's covering up. The time has come for the Prime Minister to stop spreading disinformation, stop hiding the fact that he and his ministers had no valid reason to invoke the Emergencies Act. Will he do that? Will he tell the truth?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in February, when blockades and occupations disrupted our economy, hurt workers, and endangered public safety, we invoked the Emergencies Act to help bring them to an end. We've now announced the Public Order Emergency Commission, an independent public inquiry to examine the circumstances that led to the declaration being issued and the measures taken in response as required under the Act. I know that the leader of the Conservative Party, the interim leader of the Conservative Party, as well as members of the Conservative Party, may not want light shed on these events giving their support of these blockades, but Canadians want to know the truth.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
disinformation from this Prime Minister. He should be ashamed of what he had just said. Now, Mr. Speaker, airports across the country are at a breaking point with massive lineups and delays. People are waiting for months and months and months for passports and basic government services, and it's all because of this Prime Minister's failure. While the world has moved on from COVID, Canada is stuck in out-of-date restrictions and rules because the Liberal Prime Minister is stubborn, out of touch, and out of date. My question is simple. When will Canada get back to pre-COVID normal? When?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as much as the Conservatives would like to ignore it, COVID-19 is still with us and will continue to be with us, and Canadians need to continue to follow the best science in order to keep people safe. In regards to airports, our government has already taken action to reduce wait times by standing up working groups with relevant agencies to identify and address bottlenecks and hiring about 400 additional security screeners. The CBSA has also added 25 kiosks at Pearson Airport to speed up processing time and increased overtime available to officers. Unfortunately, for Conservatives, we will continue to follow the science and keep Canadians safe.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Speaker, Canadians know the Prime Minister doesn't have to wait for hours in line at an airport when he wants to go somewhere. He just hops on his government jet and flies wherever he likes. Yep. Once there, off goes his mask and he enjoys the freedom that country is visiting. And I guess COVID isn't in those particular countries. Meanwhile, back in Canada, Canadians are suffering under his out-of-date COVID rules. Canadians have done everything that they've been asked to do. They have done everything expected of them. When are they going to get back to the pre-COVID life they need and they deserve?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, all Canadians are sick and tired of COVID. We all agree on that one. But wishing it away or ignoring it will simply not make it go away. Over the past months, we've seen more deaths from COVID than from at any time in the beginning of the pandemic. We will continue to do the work that Canadians elected us to do just 6 months ago and do everything necessary to keep Canadians safe. I know Conservatives have not been unequivocal on the need for vaccines. They've been hesitant. They've been supporting anti-vaxxers. We will continue to stand on the side of keeping Canadians safe.
Right. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
He goes again, spreading more disinformation when he's got no valid argument. It's disinformation on that side. Well, Speaker, the Prime Minister doesn't have to wait in a line. He doesn't have to worry about filling up his tank, buying groceries, or buying a home. Young people in this country are desperately worried about those things, and they know the Prime Minister either doesn't understand or he just doesn't care. They see a Prime Minister who blames everyone else for the problems he has created. The fact is, millions of young Canadians are seeing the truth. They don't trust the Prime Minister. They don't believe he understands their struggles. Why is he ignoring and disrespecting young Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
From the beginning of the pandemic, Mr. Speaker, we made a promise to Canadians that we would have their backs, and that especially included young Canadians, where we invested in support for the kinds of small businesses that keep young people employed, that we reduced student costs, tuition costs, support in terms of student loans. We've continued to invest in increasing Canada's summer jobs to make sure they got through the pandemic. We've consistently been there for young people, and every step of the way, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives criticize us for doing as much as we have to help young people. They've criticized us for not supporting young people, for supporting young people at all. We will continue to be there for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Like they say at Mass, let there be light. I fully understand now why the Prime Minister was so hostile to our motion on the separation of church and state. He had planned a week with the heir of the British throne, who will be the future religious chief of the Anglican Church. We understand his priorities. Now that we know that we have to pray for the Crown, for the monarchy, for the British monarchy of all things, when they are welcomed here, can the Prime Minister tell us how much this has all cost us? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I can only imagine that, oh my, the Liberal government in Ottawa must be delivering amazing things for Quebecers if the only thing that the leader of the Bloc Québécois can complain about is the monarchy and praying in the House of Commons. We are delivering more places for young children in Quebec. We are helping small companies. We are working for more immigration to counter the labour shortages. We are here to deliver for Quebecers and all Canadians. And so I believe that the leader of the Bloc Québécois has to dig deep in order to find something to say. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, for the Prime Minister, $2.2 million vacations are very cheap. There's always an island ready to welcome him. But the truth of the matter is that many Quebecers and most Canadians do not want the British monarchy. Over $2 million this week, $65 million a year. Tourism usually should bring money into Canada, not the opposite. So who will be footing the bill? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Let us be serious. Just 1 second, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to say that here in Canada, we have one of the strongest and stable democracies in the world, and we see how democracy is under attack, literally, in Ukraine and elsewhere in the world, with the polarization, toxicity, and the reduction of democracy in many corners of this world. Canada can be proud that, yes, we do have a system that has existed for a long time, so that we can continue on the big issues that concern Canadians and not just our own stability. And this is a good thing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Here's the situation in Canada. In April, inflation hit 6.7%, the highest since 1991. The cost of food has gone up by 9.8%, and salaries have only gone up by 3.3%. All of this to say, workers are experiencing a massive pay cut, all the while oil and gas companies are enjoying massive profits. The Prime Minister can do something instead of just standing by. Will the Prime Minister follow our plan, cancel the fossil fuel subsidies, reinvest that into people by sending them up to $1,000 directly for those who need it the most?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are committed to phasing out fossil fuel subsidies in the next 2 years and have already phased out 8 tax breaks for the sector. We recently presented the emissions reductions plan that goes line by line to cut emissions and will inform our approach to cap and cut emissions from oil and gas. We're taking real action to fight climate change by committing over $100 billion to climate action and by making sure that polluting is no longer free anywhere in the country. We're going to keep pushing forward, and I'm looking forward to support of the leader of the NDP and doing just that.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Well, this is the situation throughout the country. The cost of food has gone up by 9.8%, but salaries have only increased by 3.3%. This means that for workers, huge cuts in their relative pay. So the Liberal government has an option. Act. They can follow our plan in order to eliminate oil and gas subsidies, reinvesting the money to help people by giving them up to $1,000 directly. Will the government finally follow our plan? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I know that Canadians from coast to coast to coast are facing a terrible situation because of increased costs, and we will continue to support them. Now, with regards to the public funding of fossil fuel companies, we are progressively eliminating these subsidies, and nothing will divert our offer for Canadians. That is a strong economy and clean air. Export and economic development. Canada keeps giving subsidies in order to then pivot towards green energy. Canada has announced its intention to stop all direct public funding for the international fossil fuel industry.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, violent crime is increasing under this Prime Minister. Gun crime is up 83% since the Liberals took office. At the same time, they're going to make it allowable for criminals to get house arrest instead of go to jail for armed robbery, weapons trafficking, drug trafficking, breaking and entering, possession of illegal firearms, and drive-by shootings. He's going after law-abiding Canadians, but going soft on gangsters who don't care about his rules and paperwork. Will he scrap Bill C-5?
Here, here. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our criminal justice reform legislation turns the page on failed Conservative Party policies. They claim to be tough on crime, but really just tough on Black Canadians and Indigenous people. What our communities need is a justice system that punishes criminals. What we don't need is a system that targets rape.
A point of order. I believe that there was a suspension of interpretation.
The translation happens. It's good there. Okay, are we ready for the Right Honourable Prime Minister? You can back up a little bit.
Mr. Speaker, our criminal justice reform legislation turns the page on failed Conservative Party policies where they claim to be tough on crime, but were really just tough on Black Canadians and on Indigenous Canadians. What we need is a system that doesn't target people because of systemic discrimination, but sends people to prison because they struggle with addiction. This bill is another step forward to create a system that is fair, effective, and keeps Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
That's shameful. So instead of vile insults, let's actually talk about reality. It's record highs in Toronto alone for most shootings, most murders, and most people injured in 2018 or 2019. And many who harm innocent Canadians are multiple repeat offenders. But this Prime Minister, he wants to make it easier for them to stay home among their victims for crimes like sexual and physical assaults, human trafficking, kidnapping, criminal harassment, failure to give the necessities of life, and arson. These are major crimes that cause lifelong trauma and loss. So when will he stop punishing law-abiding Canadians and actually crack down on criminals?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let us be absolutely clear and avoid any disinformation from the Conservatives. This legislation does not stop police from charging people with gun offences or prosecutors from pursuing convictions. What it does is make sure that criminals face serious penalties while addressing the overrepresentation of Black Canadians and Indigenous peoples in the criminal justice system. This is a responsible approach to keep communities safe.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, Thomas, 16 years of age, was shot and killed after having been stopped by an individual in an alley in the north of Montreal. Thomas was a resident of the riding of the Liberal MP for Bourassa. A 17-year-old boy shot several times in the abdomen in Laurier-Sainte-Marie died of his wounds. And now the NDP Liberal coalition, along with the Bloc Québécois, want to fast-track Bill C-5, which will only help street gangs continue their shootings. Why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives should stop it with the disinformation. This legislative measure will not stop police officers from accusing anyone or arresting anyone and won't stop prosecutors. What it will do is make sure that criminals will be severely punished whilst diminishing the overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous Canadians in our carceral system. This is a responsible approach for us to make sure that our communities are safe as compared to the failed attempts of the Conservatives of the past. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles, Mr. Speaker. A criminal is a criminal is a criminal, irrespective of their race or creed. 90% of victims in 2021 are from criminal communities. So, be we white, Black, Indigenous, that changes nothing. Shooting someone illegally should be repressed, should be condemned. So why not stop C-5 and install minimum? Mr. Speaker, our bill, C5, puts an end to failed policies from the Conservatives that claimed that they were going to fight against criminality, but that only targeted black people and Indigenous people. What our communities need is a justice system that punishes criminals. What we do not need is a system that targets racialized people because of systemic discrimination. This bill is a step in the right direction towards a fair and effective system that will guarantee the security of all Canadians.
Order. We might not like the questions, we might not like the answers, but we all have a right. We all have a right to speak in this House of Commons. Are we ready for the next question? Very good. The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
The Liberals' Bill C5 goes soft on violent crimes that are ripped right from the headlines. Just yesterday, a news story read, Montreal man charged with firearm offences after investigation into drive-by shootings. Mr. Speaker, this was right in the Prime Minister's own neighbourhood, yet his Bill C5 lets drive-by shooters off easy. Why is he putting his own neighbors' lives at risk with the soft on crime Bill C5?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, targeting the supply of guns and the root causes of violence is essential to ending gun and gang violence. So we're taking action by investing $250 million in communities directly to stop violence before it starts. We're banning military-style assault weapons, and we're establishing a task force with the U.S. to end smuggling. But we know there's more to do because every life lost to gun violence is one too many. So I stand with communities, experts and advocates to say, don't worry, Conservatives, we're committed to doing even more on gun control.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Yet the Prime Minister's not standing with victims. Victims have spoke loud and clear. And as a matter of fact, a poll published this week found that most Canadians feel that gun violence is getting worse in their communities. But rather than stopping illegal firearms from coming across the border, the Liberals' Bill C5 will help repeat offenders charged with multiple violent gun crimes escape accountability. We know this Prime Minister likes to govern by opinion polls, so will he finally do the right thing, reverse course, and abandon his soft on crime Bill C5?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, allow us to be very clear in the face of misinformation and disinformation from the Conservatives. This legislation does not stop police from charging people with gun offences or prosecutors from pursuing convictions. We are moving forward on stronger gun control, both by interdicting the flow of guns, illegal guns across the border, and continuing to step up on more gun control, because all Canadians are united in wanting to see less gun crime, less gun violence, and that's exactly what we're delivering, in contrary to the Conservatives who want less gun control.
As I've said before in this House, I don't mind a little bit of heckling. The incessant yelling is a little bit over the top.
The honourable member for Berry-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has managed to invent democracy, has invoked democracy and monarchy in the same sentence, which is pretty crazy. The monarchy that I'm paying, for which I'm paying their holidays. This is a monarchy that has appointed Governor Generals and Lieutenant Governors that don't speak a word of French. Can the Prime Minister explain to the Prince of Wales that the Dominion of Canada is bilingual? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this afternoon I will be having a talk with the Prince of Wales and leaders from the business sector, with Indigenous leaders, to talk about the importance about fighting climate change. We know that this is a global issue, and we are doing real leadership work in the world to ensure that there is a better investment and sustainable transition towards eco-energy. We will continue to work within our democratic system, our institutional system that is very strong democratically, and that is what we'll deliver for Canadians. The honourable member for Berry-Chambly. So the Prince of Wales really needs to meet Indigenous peoples and business leaders. Okay. But at the same time, Monarchy representatives don't speak French. Bill C-101 is being flouted. The Charter of the French language should apparently not be used for federal companies. Is the Prime Minister just simply fomenting against French at the end of the day? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, with the modernisation of the Official Languages Act, we are currently not only strengthening the protection of the French language within Quebec and without, but we are doing what the Bloc Québécois cannot do, that is to protect French throughout Canada. We will continue to be here for Francophone minorities that are facing huge challenges, and it is this Liberal government and the Liberal Party of Canada, not the Bloc Québécois, that will always be here to support Francophones to invest in their future.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell me if he is beginning consultation on a tariff on urea?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll ensure that the appropriate minister follows up with this member.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Well, I guess we now understand why the Liberals are refusing to answer questions on a fertilizer tariff, because they have no idea what we're talking about. In fact, stakeholders in meeting with ministers have been told that the Liberals had no idea that Canadian farmers actually purchased fertilizer from Russia. Now we're the only country in the world that has a tariff on fertilizer, and our producers are the ones who are paying the price. But typical Liberals, let's impose punishing policy first, and let's ignore the devastating results afterwards and that fallout. So will the Prime Minister exempt the 35% tariff on Russian fertilizer purchased before March 2nd?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine has required us to step up on sanctions to punish Vladimir Putin and those who've supported and enabled his war. We know that countries around the world are facing hardships because of limits on Russian exports, and we've committed to being there to support Canadians who are facing these difficulties, whether it's the Evraz employees, whether it's farmers on the East Coast who depend more on Russian fertilizer than those on the West Coast. We are going to be there to continue to support Canadian farmers through this difficult time.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the seeding season is upon us and our farmers are worried. Since last autumn, the price of fuel and fertiliser has more than doubled and continues to rise under the neoliberal government with an inflation rate of 6.8%. Moreover, does this government not realise that the 35% tariff it imposes upon our farmers does not even penalise Russia in the first place? It only serves to cripple our farm families and double the cost of production of our Canadian food. When will the Prime Minister finally stand up for our Canadian farmers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We strongly condemn the unjust and illegal war conducted by Vladimir Putin in Ukraine. We know that fertilizer is essential for Canadian agriculture, and we continue to work with industry. Our government now allows producers to have access to $1 million in the anticipated payment program, the first tranche of $100,000 of which is without interest. Our government continues to support Canadian producers and farmers by giving them access to various programs that are here to help them to hedge and counter loss of revenue.
Lethbridge.
Because of this government's reckless spending, Canadians are becoming poorer and poorer by the day. That's because inflation has now reached a record of 6.8%. Groceries are up by 10%, gas is over $2.30 a litre in parts of Western Canada, and housing prices have doubled. Sadly, these realities don't seem to register with the Prime Minister because, well, someone else foots his bills. So would he please demonstrate just a little bit of humility today, try to put himself in the shoes of working-class Canadians, and will he stop the out-of-control spending that is condemning the Canadian people to a life of poverty?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we know families across this country and Canadians are facing increased prices at the pumps and at the grocery stores, and that's why we've continued to move forward in ways that have their backs. Unlike the Conservatives who voted against our measures on supporting families, we move forward with early learning and childcare program that, as I announced in Newfoundland and Labrador yesterday, will save average families about $5,000 in their bills this year. These are these are investments that will support families right across the country. Now that every single province and territory, including the Conservative ones, have signed on to our early learning and childcare framework, families are going to save thousands of dollars this year across the country.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People are waiting for hours and hours at the airports. People are waiting extremely long just to get their passport, and none of this is a surprise. As soon as travel restrictions eased, people are going to travel. So why didn't the Prime Minister hire enough staff, have enough human resources, so that Canadians did not have to wait under these massive delays to receive their passport and other services federally, as well as being able to go and visit their family? Why?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is very good news that Canadians are starting to travel again. This is something that is exciting for everyone, but we understand that the slowdowns around passports are difficult and stressful. Canadians are giving a significant increase in demands for passports, so we created new centres to increase production capacity, hired 500 new employees, and set up a new online booking tool to direct applicants to the best option for submitting their passport applications. We will continue exploring all options to improve the current situation.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
The Rogers takeover of Shaw will mean massive layoffs of workers. It's going to be bad for Canadians because of rising costs. It's certainly good for billionaires, though, and the billionaire families involved. And now there's a risk of another billionaire company, the Quebecor, that might buy Freedom Mobile, which is also going to be bad for workers with layoffs, bad for Canadians with the rising cost of cellular services, but again, good for billionaires. So when will the Prime Minister say no to billionaires, no to this merger, and yes to Canadians who deserve affordable cellular and internet services?
Hear, hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our priority has always been greater affordability, competition, and innovation in the Canadian telecom sector. These goals are front and centre as we analyze the implications of this proposed deal. This transaction has been independently reviewed by the Competition Bureau of Canada and the CRTC. Our government will ensure that consumers are protected and that the broader public interest is served as this proposed merger is evaluated.
The honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt the Ukrainian people have exhibited strength beyond measure, and yet unfortunately next week will mark 3 months since the start of Putin's illegal war on Ukraine. And Ukraine's President Zelensky has repeatedly thanked Canada for the aid and support to help his people defend themselves against the Russian invaders. Yet there still is no end in sight in this senseless war. And Ukraine's forces' need for lethal and non-lethal equipment is not winding down anytime soon. So, can the Prime Minister update this House on the support Canada is providing so Ukrainians can better defend their homeland?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Whitby for his question and for his hard work. Millions of dollars worth of our aid has arrived in the Ukraine and is making a critical difference on the ground. To support our European allies, the Royal Canadian Air Force's C-130s have now moved £2 million of military and humanitarian aid destined for Ukraine across the European continent, and this work continues every single day. As Ukrainian heroes fight back against Putin, we'll continue to help them win this war. Slava Ukraini!
The honourable member for Cumberland Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. This Prime Minister has called everyone on this side of the House just now a racist. Right. This is shameful. Yeah. Shameful. That's right. And it is no thing that should happen in this House. Shameful. It's no surprise that many Canadians continue to reject his federal mandates, Mr. Speaker, and we know this is a cabinet decision, and we know that that makes it this Prime Minister's personal decision to punish his political opponents. Not allowing families to reunite is deeply hurtful and is tantamount to ostracism and political vindictiveness. What's next to go for those who won't conform? Those he's described as taking up space, which rights will he trample on next?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of this pandemic, we made a very straightforward promise to Canadians that we would have their backs and that we would follow the science to keep them safe. That is exactly what we've done. The Conservative Party has been all over the place, shouting that we needed to deliver vaccines faster and then ignoring the need for vaccines once they arrive. They continue to want to wish this pandemic away, but magical thinking doesn't save lives in Canada, doesn't restore small businesses, doesn't grow our economy and get people back to work. That's why we continue to follow science. We continue to keep Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister talks about science. Let's talk about what the truth is. Imagine that we're living in a country that singles out 15% of its population for special treatment. That means you mock their personal decisions, you call them names, and you tell them they're taking up space. Further, imagine, Mr. Speaker, if you will, that their freedom to move around this very large country is also taken away. Why are they being singled out, Mr. Speaker? Because they made a personal health decision. Should other world leaders call out this Prime Minister for the vindictive behavior? You bet they should. This is petty, it's petulant, and this behavior must stop. On which date will Canada return to normal?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that question from the honourable member might be a little more convincing if the member from Cumberland Colchester hadn't just said a few weeks ago in this House that the vaccine mandates had an important purpose of keeping Canadians safe. So he agreed that we had to have them in place while the pandemic was going on. But Mr. Speaker, as all Canadians know, this pandemic has not yet ended. Canadians are still dying in larger numbers than they did previously during the pandemic, and we need to continue to do what is necessary to keep them safe. And Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what this government will continue to do.
Just need to remind folks, questions are 35 seconds or so. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Speaker, international arrivals at Canadian airports are so backed up that people are being kept on planes for hours after they land because there isn't enough space for the long lineups. His minister blames travelers, and the world has embraced restriction-free travel. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Airports Council, and now health experts are telling this government that their outdated COVID restrictions have to go. Who's actually telling the government to keep those restrictions?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past months, Canadians continue to die at a higher rate than during the first 2 years of COVID-19. The pandemic is still with us, and we need to continue to do what is necessary based on science to keep people safe. In regards to airport delays, we're hiring about 400 additional security screeners. We've added 25 kiosks at Pearson Airport to speed up processing time, increased overtime available to officers. It's a good thing that Canadians are starting to travel again, and we will be there to support them. But we're also going to continue to keep Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The answer is nobody, except for the spin doctors in the Liberal cabinet. Yeah. Instead of telling Canadians they are out of practice, he could bring back the workers that they fired. He could stop the 4,000 tests for incoming travelers each day. He could do what most other countries have done and end the restrictions. Why is he doing nothing?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we continue to evaluate and reevaluate the measures we have to keep Canadians safe, and we will continue to do exactly that. Canada put in place measures that kept us on a better track through this pandemic than just about than most of our peer countries, and we will continue to make sure we're keeping Canadians safe, not just for the sake of keeping Canadians alive and healthy, which is itself a noble goal, but also because that's the best way to restore our economy and our functioning, which is exactly what we're seeing with what this government has done to support small businesses and families across the country.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, we need a registry of criminal organizations to deal with the gang war in Greater Montreal. A registry would make police work easier by making gang membership an offense in and of itself. The day before yesterday, the Minister of Public Safety was in agreement, but yesterday he shut the door. What does the Prime Minister say today? While the federal government dithers, Montreal is slipping back into the biker wars of the 90s when it comes to shootings. Today we want a clear answer. Will the Prime Minister create a registry of criminal organizations? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, to put an end to gang violence, we have to deal with the root causes of this violence. Since 2017, we've invested over $358 million to improve enforcement mechanisms, to increase prevention, and to fund local strategies to prevent and fight violence. We've also created a fund for safer communities, $250 million, with a view to preventing at-risk youth from getting involved in criminal activity. We will always be there with solutions that work. The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamitis-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, last Wednesday, a Hells Angel was gunned down in broad daylight in the Prime Minister's own riding. Surely he realizes there's a gang problem in Montreal. We need a registry of criminal gangs in order to make being a gang member a crime. It's simple. It's the same idea as the list of terrorist entities. Right now, joining a terrorist group is criminal, but belonging to the Hells Angels or a street gang is okay. And yet the gangs are the ones spraying bullets all over the place right now. Why would the feds let them roam free? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it would be all well and good to have simplistic solutions to complex problems, but the fact is that the street gang problem and the problem of gun violence requires us to work on various levels, at the root causes, on the symptoms as well, on prevention and so on. And that's precisely what we're doing with hundreds of millions of dollars invested in communities with more tools and consequences for police dealing with gun crimes. And we will work with our municipal and provincial partners in fighting crime. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the negative impacts of the pandemic are enormous. The cost of living has gone up. Businesses are facing major supply problems and an unprecedented labor shortage. And there's another major problem, the spike in mental health problems. This Liberal government needs to act now. Budget 2022 falls short. Can the Prime Minister commit to presenting a plan quickly to protect our young people who've been hit so hard by this crisis? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. First of all, I'd like to thank the Conservative member, for recognizing that the pandemic has caused an increase in the cost of living and supply chain problems. We will continue to be there to help families who are struggling, and at the same time, we will also be there to invest in mental health care, and we will support young people's mental health. We've already made historic investments, and we will continue to work in partnership with the provinces, while, of course, respecting their jurisdiction, in order to deliver mental health services to young people.
Wetaskiwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 4 times in the past 2 weeks, I've asked questions about the Canada Mental Health Transfer, an election commitment quite obviously broken by the Liberal government. The minister never even pretended to attempt an answer. Page 75 of the Liberal platform clearly promises immediate funding of $250 million and then another $625 million in this year's budget. There has to be an explanation as to why the Liberals broke this significant promise to vulnerable Canadians. Can the Prime Minister simply tell us what that explanation is?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the course of the last 2 years, we invested about $69 billion more than the federal government usually does into health care across the country. Much of it transfers to provinces, much of it direct investments in things like vaccines and mental health programs like the National Wellness Hotline and website. There is much more to do, and we will do that. But we will do that in full respect of the province's jurisdiction over health care in defining how it is we can move forward in a way that works for all Canadians. Canadians. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we respect the divisions of powers laid out by the Constitution.
The honourable member for Edmonton-Wetaskiwin.
Then why make the promise? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister recently stood here and actually said with a straight face, quote, "We will not simply fall back on slogans and easy solutions. Instead, with this government, it's always only slogans and no solutions." More than 30 times this year, including a couple of times today, the Prime Minister's responded to legitimate questions by shrugging them off and offering yet another mind-numbing reference to, quote, "having Canadians' backs." On his signature promise of a Canada mental health transfer, he's turning his back on Canadians who really need help. Again, simply, why is he breaking his word on such an important commitment?
Great question. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I have said time and time again, we will be there to step up on investing more in healthcare, including on mental health across the country. But that needs to be done, right, Mr. Speaker? It needs to be done in partnership with the provinces and territories. We cannot simply expect that throwing money at a problem is going to solve it in terms of delivery for Canadians. That's why we intend to work closely with the provinces in partnership on delivering better mental health care, on delivering better supports for Canadians, as we have throughout this pandemic, with historic investments of over $69 billion in additional funding for healthcare.
The honourable member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, today the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change is participating in a roundtable to be joined by the Prime Minister to discuss ongoing funding for the fight against climate change. Can the Prime Minister inform this House of this important initiative that will help Canada meet its emissions targets while supporting a strong economy in the long run? Thank you very much. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would first like to thank the member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle for her question and for the work, her hard work she does in her riding. Mr. Speaker, Canada is continuing to seek private sector sources to invest in sustainable development. It's clear that their expertise is needed to reach our climate change objectives and to make a real change in the fight against global warming. Canada will, in this way, be able to meet our targets and support long-term economic growth.
Speaker, two quick questions to the Prime Minister. First, the World Health Assembly will be meeting next week. Does Canada support Taiwan's participation at next week's meeting? And second, the International Civil Aviation Organization's upcoming triannual assembly will be taking place in September. Does Canada support Taiwan's inclusion at that upcoming triannual assembly?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, Canada's position on Taiwan is long-standing. We support its inclusion in multilateral fora, multilateral bodies to make sure that their perspective is heard.
The honourable member for Haldimand-Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, May 22nd to May 28th, representatives from 194 countries will meet in Geneva at the World Health Assembly to discuss the WHO Global Pandemic Treaty and to vote on amendments to the international health regulations. Why didn't this Prime Minister establish a public health inquiry into our COVID response before considering signing amendments to the international health regulations?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as an active member of the WHO, Canada has always been there to push for better science, to push for better impacts in the way we collaborate around the world. Canada is a leading voice on ensuring not only that we make it through this pandemic, which is continuing to be ongoing, but also that we prepare for future pandemics, which unfortunately may well be the reality for decades and generations to come. We will continue to be active, strong participants in international fora around health, while always respecting and protecting Canada's sovereignty and choices to make the right decisions for its own citizens.
Now, I see someone standing, but Wellington Halton Hills took the first question and the second one. So the next one in the sequence is Calgary Skyview. Well, it was two.
Three-question block. Three questions.
Well, we're checking with the table, and in the sequence, there was only 2 in the cycle. Sequence is 2 Conservatives. We had Wellington Halton Hills, and then we had Norfolk Alderman. No, it's only on this. It's only 2. Let's go. We'll take a break for a second. I want to make sure everybody's heard correctly here. Five in the count, and I apologize. I just want to make sure. The honourable member for Haldimand Norfolk.
Canadians deserve to know what this government is signing away. It is irresponsible to negotiate pandemic response powers when we haven't had a public inquiry into our own pandemic policies. How can we prepare for the future when we haven't learned the lessons from the past 2 years? Will the Prime Minister tell Canadians today when a public inquiry into government COVID responses will be established?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Here's the lesson we've all learned from the past 2 years. Vaccines save lives, Mr. Speaker. We know that basing our response to this pandemic on the best public health advice, which includes getting as many Canadians vaccinated as possible to keep them safe, is exactly the way through. And it is a shame to continue to see the Conservative Party supporting views that vaccination is not the way through this pandemic. As we deal with the continued consequences of this pandemic, we will continue to stand with science and ensure Canadians continue to get vaccinated.
The honourable member, Calgary Skyview.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are outraged by Russia's despicable invasion of Ukraine. They are following the situation closely, and we're pleased to see economic sanctions to those who have a role to play in this. They also want to ensure those directing, perpetrating, and supporting this willful violence are held accountable for their actions. Can the Prime Minister tell us what measures Canada is taking to hold Russian collaborators accountable and prevent them from entering our country?
Good question. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I want to thank the member for Calgary Skyview for his question and his incredibly hard work in his community. Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine is being met with severe, coordinated economic sanctions and increased pressure from Canada and our allies. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, Canada has sanctioned 915 individuals from Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. And we recently strengthened our regime by introducing legislation allowing officials to bar entry or remove to those sanctions their role in Putin's war. We will ensure that the sanctions have further consequences in terms of immigration and access to Canada.
The honourable member for Nunavut.
There are consequences when this Liberal government fails to implement the calls for justice by the National Inquiry on MMIWG. Indigenous women and land defenders continue to face systemic discrimination and violence from the RCMP. Indigenous women are increasingly overrepresented in Canada's prisons. Indigenous women are still experiencing disproportionate rates of violence. When will this Prime Minister stop offering empty words and start acting on helping Indigenous women?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, everyone has the right to live free from violence. Since we formed government, we've taken real action to end gender-based violence in our communities with specific emphasis on the violence faced by Indigenous women and girls right across the country. We've developed the first federal strategy to prevent gender-based violence in 2017, and we're making historic investments to prevent and end gender-based violence. Our most recent budget invests nearly $540 million to develop a national action plan alongside provinces and territories to prevent gender-based violence and support survivors. But we know there's an urgent need for even more action. We will not stop until gender-based violence comes to an end.
The honourable member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, the soaring cost of gas has eviscerated Canadian consumers. With an unprecedented 6.8% inflation rate, people are wondering, where's next month's mortgage or rent coming from? All while the GST is slashing through what remains in their pocketbook. The government knows that it's raking in billions of extra dollars. Will the Prime Minister introduce a tax rebate, like the fiscally prudent and compassionate Martin government did to help Canadians? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Every step of the way through this pandemic and beyond, we've been there to support Canadians, and we will continue to in making investments to support families and ensuring that the Canada Child Benefit is indexed to the cost of inflation, so it continues to match the Canadian spending powers, and in moving forward with historic investments in childcare that is saving families across this country thousands of dollars every month, every year, that will help them with the rising cost of living. We know Canadians are facing challenges. We will continue to be there to support them.
Well, that's all the time we have for question period today. Before we move on, I just wanted to apologize to the member for Haldeman Norfolk. There was a printing error with the sheets that we were given, so her question was missed in the lineup. So I just wanted to make sure I apologize on behalf of the table for missing the printout. There's a point of order from the honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't believe that I understand the reasons you apologized, but it does raise the issue that getting a list from the party whips is not the rule in this place. It's a tradition that has grown, and it is not what any other Westminster parliamentary democracy does. Every speaker has the right to identify the person who catches his eye. Good for you.
In this case, but I think in this case, with a number of questions that we do receive, it's great to have a list from the parties. We believe we have a motion or a point of order from the honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions amongst the parties, and if you seek it, I trust you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. This House acknowledged the genocide of Tamils in Sri Lanka and recognize May 18th of each year as Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. Motion is carried. I believe also we have a point of order from the honourable member from Etobicoke Centre.
There have been discussions among the parties. If you seek it, I hope that you'll find unanimous consent for the following motion. I move that, given that on May 18, 1944, the Soviet Union, under the orders of Joseph Stalin, commenced the Surgunlik, the mass deportation of the Crimean Tatar people from Crimea. 2, there is clear and ample evidence that the deportation of the Crimean Tatars from their homeland was intended by the Soviet regime as a means of collective punishment and to destroy the Crimean Tatar people. 3, the mass deportation led to approximately 200,000 Crimean Tatars being deported from their homeland, thousands of Crimean Tatars dying during the deportation, tens of thousands of Crimean Tatars dying from starvation, disease, forced labor, and continuous abuse by the Soviet regime, and all Crimean Tatars being deprived of their property, their freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and freedom of movement. 4, on November 12, 2015, the Parliament of Ukraine recognized the mass deportation of the Crimean Tatars by the Soviet regime in 1944 as genocide and designated May 18th as an official day of commemoration. 5, on March 18, 2014, the Russian Federation annexed the Autonomous Republic of Crimea following a military invasion of Ukraine. 6, since then, Crimean Tatars face renewed persecution, including forced disappearances, attacks on their freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and freedom of speech, and their dispossession of private property by the occupying Russian forces. That this House, 1, recognizes that the mass deportation of the Crimean Tatars by the Soviet regime in 1944, known as the Surgunlik, constituted a genocide against the Crimean Tatar people, and 2, designates May 18th of each year as Crimean Tatar Deportation Surgunlik Memorial Day.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. And the motion is carried.
We'll say thank you to Carrie's the aye. You guys voted against Carrie's motion to do the same thing.
It being 3:21, pursuant to order made on Thursday, November 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at second reading stage of Bill C-234 under private members' business. Call in the members. You can have that one. The question is the following one. Mr. Lobb, seconded by Mr. Barlow, move that Bill C-234, an act to amend the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, be now read a second time and referred to the Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food. The period to deminute.
The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote. We will start with the sponsor of the item.
With the sponsor of the item. Mr. Law. We will then proceed to members participating in person. All those at my left in favor of the motion will please rise, starting from the sixth row.
Mr. Morrison.
Mr. Morrison.
Mr. Petzer.
Mr. Petzer.
Mr. Soroka.
Mr. Soroka.
Mr. Van Papta.
Mr. Van Papta.
Mr. Ruff.
Mr. Ruff.